The thing about watching your life implode in real time is that it happens slower than you'd think, but faster than you can stop it. Like watching a wine glass tip over in slow motion. You see it happening, you know exactly where this is going, but your hand just won't move fast enough to catch it. That's exactly how I felt sitting at Romano's, watching my wife Adrienne hold court at her 36th birthday dinner. The restaurant buzzed with the kind of artificial energy that comes from too much Prosecco and not enough genuine affection. Adrienne had insisted on inviting what felt like half the city's real estate crowd, plus her usual gaggle of girlfriends who treated gossip like an Olympic sport. "Nick, honey, could you flag down the waiter? I need another bottle of that Bordeaux." Adrienne's voice carried that particular tone she used when she wanted to sound sweet but was really giving orders. After 15 years of marriage, I knew all her tones. I raised my hand to catch the waiter's attention, scanning the table as I did. There was Piper, Adrienne's best friend since college, already 3 sheets to the wind and live tweeting the dinner like it was the Met Gala. Next to her sat Gina, nodding along to whatever Piper was saying while secretly calculating how much this dinner was costing us. Then there was Tasha, the sharp-tongued one who somehow managed to insult everyone while making it sound like compliments. "This place is gorgeous, Adrienne," Piper gushed, waving her phone around to capture the ambiance. "So much classier than that dive bar Nick wanted to take you to for your birthday." I hadn't suggested a dive bar. I'd suggested our favorite little Italian place where we'd had our first date, but apparently sentiment doesn't photograph well for Instagram. "Well, a girl deserves to be treated like a queen on her birthday," Adrienne laughed, and the sound had an edge to it that made my stomach clench. "Speaking of which, I have some people to thank." She stood up, tapping her wine glass with her knife. The conversation died down as everyone turned to look at her. Adrienne loved being the center of attention. It's what made her such a successful real estate agent. She knew how to work a room. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she began, her voice carrying easily across the table. "This has been such an incredible year for me. I've closed more deals than ever before, I've built amazing friendships, and I've learned so much about what I really want out of life." Murmurs of appreciation rippled around the table. I smiled and nodded along, playing the supportive husband role I'd perfected over the years. "I especially want to thank someone who's been instrumental in helping me raise the bar this year," Adrienne continued, and I felt a little flutter of anticipation. Maybe this was going to be one of those moments where she publicly acknowledged how supportive I'd been during her career surge. "Bryce Maddox, everyone." My heart stopped. Literally stopped for a full beat before starting up again with a vengeance. Bryce Maddox, real estate developer, gym rat, and my wife's ex-boyfriend from college. The man currently sitting 3 seats down from me, raising his wine glass with a smile that was just a little too confident. "Bryce has been such an amazing mentor and partner this year," Adrienne went on, her eyes locked on his. "He's shown me what's possible when you refuse to settle for mediocre. He's taught me to demand excellence in every aspect of my life. Bryce, you've truly raised the bar for me." The applause was enthusiastic. Bryce stood up and gave a little bow, then blew Adrienne a kiss that lingered just a second too long to be purely professional. "And of course," Adrienne added almost as an afterthought, "thanks to my husband Nick too, I guess." For being there. More polite applause. I managed to raise my glass and smile, but inside I was crumbling. The casual dismissal in her voice, the way she'd built up Bryce like he was some kind of hero while I got a participation trophy, it was humiliating. "Here's to high bars and low expectations," I said, raising my glass higher. A few people laughed, thinking it was just my usual dry humor. They had no idea how literal I was being. The dinner continued around me, but I felt disconnected from it all, like I was watching it happen to someone else. Piper and Gina kept shooting glances between Adrienne and Bryce, whispering behind their hands. Tasha made some comment about how some people just have a taste for adventure, which got knowing looks from half the table. I excused myself to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror, gripping the marble countertop until my knuckles went white. My reflection looked back at me. Average height, average build, average everything. Nothing like Bryce with his perfect teeth and gym-sculpted shoulders. When I returned to the table, Adrienne was showing everyone photos on her phone. "This is the penthouse Bryce just finished," she was saying. "He gave me a private tour last week. The master bedroom has the most incredible view. I bet it does." The ride home was quiet. Emma, our 13-year-old daughter, had stayed with my parents for the weekend, so it was just Adrienne and me in the car. She spent the entire drive texting, her phone lighting up her face in the darkness. "Good dinner," I said finally, just to break the silence. She replied, without looking up from her phone. Bryce seemed to enjoy himself. He's been working so hard on that new development. He deserves to have some fun. Still texting. I'm sure he does. When we got home, Adrienne went straight upstairs to wash off her makeup, which I knew meant she'd be on her phone for another hour. I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my home office, staring at the wall where we'd hung our wedding photos. 15 years. 15 years of marriage, of building a life together, of supporting her dreams and celebrating her successes. And I get dismissed with, "Thanks to Nick too, I guess," while her ex-boyfriend gets a speech about raising bars. I was still nursing my bourbon when Adrienne came downstairs in her robe. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. But there was something cold in her expression. "We need to talk," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Okay." "Nick, I've been thinking a lot about what I want out of life. About what I deserve." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think I've been settling." Settling for what? For safe, for comfortable, for predictable. Each word was like a small knife. "You're a good man, Nick. You're reliable and steady, and you pay the bills on time. But I'm 36 years old, and I feel like I'm sleepwalking through my life." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I deserve more excitement, more passion, more everything." She leaned forward, and for a moment I thought she was going to reach for my hand. Instead, she folded her hands in her lap. "I think we both know this marriage has run its course." I stared at her, bourbon burning in my throat. "Because I'm not exciting enough. Because we want different things. Because I've outgrown this." She gestured around the room, but I knew she meant me. "What about Emma?" "Emma will be fine. Kids are resilient. And honestly, she'll probably benefit from seeing her mother happy for once." Happy. As if I'd been making her miserable all these years. After she went to bed, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about bars and expectations and the way Bryce had looked at my wife. Eventually, I went upstairs to grab my phone charger from Adrienne's nightstand. She was always stealing mine. That's when I saw it. A second phone, tucked behind her jewelry box. A phone I'd never seen before. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. It wasn't password protected. Arrogant of her, really. The message thread at the top was with someone named B. The messages went back months. Photos, texts, plans. Filthy, explicit, detailed plans. The most recent message was from earlier that evening. "Can't wait to give you your real birthday present tomorrow. The penthouse will finally feel like home with you in it." Adrienne's response. "I can't wait to be free." Nick suspects nothing. He's so pathetically oblivious. I set the phone down carefully, my whole body numb. Then I walked to my office, opened my laptop, and started planning. If Adrienne wanted excitement, I was about to give her more than she'd bargained for. The thing about discovering your wife's affair through a burner phone is that it gives you a very specific kind of clarity, like suddenly being able to see through fog that's been clouding your vision for months. All those late client meetings, all those weekend property tours, all those times she'd come home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. It all made perfect sense now. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my office reading through months of messages between my wife and Bryce Maddox. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning a whole future together. Adrienne had been feeding him information about our finances, our assets, even our daughter's schedule. They'd discussed the best way to transition Nick out of the picture with minimal financial impact on Adrienne. Minimal financial impact. Like I was a line item in a budget report. The next morning, Adrienne was all smiles and coffee, acting like she hadn't just blown up our marriage the night before. She was getting ready for her Sunday yoga class, the one that apparently ended at Bryce's penthouse more often than not. "I'm meeting Piper for lunch after yoga," she said, not looking at me as she packed her gym bag. "We might go shopping." Don't wait up. I'll bet they might go shopping. Probably for lingerie to wear to the penthouse. "Sounds fun," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I think I'll work on the deck today. Maybe invite Will over to help." "Whatever." She kissed my cheek, a quick, perfunctory peck that felt like a business transaction. "See you tonight?" After she left, I called my best friend, Will Patterson. Will was a lawyer, but more importantly, he was the kind of friend who'd help you move a body without asking questions. Not that I was planning anything that extreme, but it was good to know he had my back. "You sound like hell," Will said when he arrived an hour later, carrying a toolbox and 2 cups of coffee from the good place downtown. "Rough night." "Want to talk about it while we work?" I told him everything. The birthday dinner, the conversation afterward, the phone. Will listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic noises. When I finished, he set down his hammer and looked at me seriously. "What do you want to do about it?" "I want to destroy them both." "Legally?" "Preferably." Will grinned. "Now you're speaking my language." We spent the morning working on the deck and planning my revenge. Will had handled enough messy divorces to know exactly how to protect my assets and parental rights. More importantly, he had ideas about how to make Adrienne and Bryce's lives very uncomfortable without crossing any legal lines. "The key," Will explained while measuring deck boards, "is to let them destroy themselves. Give them enough rope, then sit back and watch them hang." "What kind of rope?" "Public humiliation. These people live for their reputations, right? Take that away, and you've taken everything." I liked the sound of that. That afternoon, I drove to the gym where Adrienne claimed to do yoga. It was one of those trendy places with floor-to-ceiling windows and overpriced smoothies. I parked across the street and waited. Sure enough, at 2:30, Adrienne came out. But instead of getting in her car, she walked 3 blocks to a construction site, Bryce's latest development, according to the sign out front. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding with a mixture of rage and anticipation. The construction site was mostly empty on Sunday, just a security guard who was clearly being paid to look the other way. I watched from behind a stack of building materials as Adrienne disappeared into the partially completed building. 5 minutes later, Bryce's silver BMW pulled up. I'd seen enough. Time for phase 1. I waited until they'd been inside for an hour, then made my move. Bryce's BMW was parked right next to the construction fence, gleaming in the afternoon sun. He was so proud of that car, always posting photos of it on social media, always making sure it was parked where people could see it. The key made a satisfying scraping sound as I dragged it along the driver's side, spelling out "Homewrecker" in letters 6 inches tall. For good measure, I left a used condom on the windshield, not one of mine, obviously. I'd bought a box specifically for this purpose. The whole thing took less than 2 minutes. I was back in my car and driving away before they even knew what had happened. That evening, Adrienne came home flushed and happy, humming under her breath. She'd clearly had a good afternoon with Bryce. The thought made me sick, but I kept my expression neutral. "How was yoga?" I asked. "Great." Really worked up a sweat. She wasn't even trying to hide the double meaning. "And lunch with Piper?" "Oh, we ended up skipping lunch." She had some drama with her husband. Another lie, delivered with perfect casualness. I nodded and went back to my book. Let her think she was getting away with it. Tomorrow would be interesting. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Bryce's BMW, keyed and condom decorated, with the message, "Do you know who did this?" I showed the photo to Adrienne. "Looks like someone had a bad day," I said. Her face went white. "That's terrible. Who would do something like that?" "Probably someone who doesn't like homewreckers." She gave me a sharp look. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just seems like a very specific message, doesn't it?" For the rest of the week, I played the perfect oblivious husband while secretly documenting everything. I installed a GPS tracker on Adrienne's car, perfectly legal since it was registered in both our names. I set up a camera in our bedroom to catch her using the burner phone. I even started a fake social media account to follow Piper and Gina, knowing they couldn't resist gossiping about the drama. Sure enough, by Wednesday, Piper was posting cryptic messages about karma and cheaters getting what they deserve. Gina was sharing articles about infidelity with pointed comments about some people having no shame. Even Tasha got in on the action, posting a photo of a keyed car with the caption, "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." The best part was watching Adrienne try to figure out who was behind it all. She was paranoid, jumpy, constantly checking over her shoulder. She'd clearly told Bryce about her suspicions, because he started showing up at random places, the grocery store, Emma's school, even our neighborhood, like he was trying to catch me in the act. Good luck with that, buddy. I was way smarter than he gave me credit for. The breaking point came on Friday night. Adrienne was at another client dinner, really a romantic evening with Bryce at the new French place downtown, and I was home with Emma, helping her with her science project. "Dad, why has Mom been so weird lately?" Emma asked, gluing popsicle sticks together with the focused intensity only teenagers could muster. "What do you mean?" "She's always on her phone, and she keeps talking about new opportunities and fresh starts. It's like she's planning something big but doesn't want to tell us." Smart kid. Too smart for her own good sometimes. "I think your mom is just excited about work," I said carefully. Emma gave me a look that was way too mature for 13. "Dad, I'm not stupid. I know something's going on. You've been different too. Angrier." I set down the glue gun and looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She had Adrienne's eyes but my stubborn chin, and right now she looked worried in a way that made my chest tight. "Would you be okay if things changed around here?" I asked. "What kind of changes?" "I don't know yet. But if they did, I want you to know that you're the most important thing in the world to me. Whatever happens with your mom and me, that will never change." Emma was quiet for a long moment, focusing intently on her project. Finally, she said, "I heard her on the phone the other night. She was talking to someone about lawyers and custody and making sure she got what she deserved. It didn't sound like work stuff." "What else did you hear?" "She said something about you being financially stable but emotionally unavailable, and how that would work in her favor." "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" I wanted to lie, to protect her from the ugly truth a little longer. But Emma deserved honesty, and she was clearly already putting the pieces together on her own. "It's possible," I said. "Your mom and I are having some problems." "Because of that guy Bryce?" Jesus, she really was too smart for her own good. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Mom talks about him all the time, and she gets this weird smile when she does. Plus, she's been dressing up more and wearing that perfume she only used to wear on special occasions. And last week I saw her delete a text message really fast when I walked into the room." I pulled Emma into a hug, this brilliant, observant kid who was going to be just fine no matter what happened. "You know what? Whatever changes come, we're going to handle them together, you and me. Deal? Deal. But Dad? Yeah? When you get revenge on them, can you make it really embarrassing? I'm tired of pretending I don't know what's going on." I laughed, despite everything. "I'll see what I can do." That night, after Emma went to bed, I sat in my office and finalized my plans. Adrienne wanted excitement. Bryce wanted to raise the bar. They were about to get more of both than they'd ever imagined. The real game was just beginning. Monday morning brought the first real test of my newfound resolve. Adrienne was getting ready for what she claimed was a major client presentation, but according to the GPS tracker, she was actually heading to Bryce's office for what their text messages described as a strategy session. The only strategy they were discussing involved how to screw me over in the divorce. I'd spent the weekend doing research, and what I'd found was fascinating. Bryce Maddox, self-proclaimed real estate mogul, had a history that didn't quite match his carefully crafted public image. 3 previous business partners, all of whom had mysteriously lost their investments when deals went south. 2 misconduct settlements that had been quietly buried. And most interesting of all, a bankruptcy from 8 years ago that he'd managed to keep off his current business profiles. The man was a fraud, and I was going to prove it. "I might be late tonight," Adrienne said, adjusting her blouse in the hallway mirror. She was wearing the red one that she knew looked good on her, paired with the skirt that was just a little too short for a business meeting. "This client is very demanding." "I'm sure he is," I replied, not looking up from my coffee. She paused, probably trying to figure out if that was a dig. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that demanding clients usually pay well. I hope he's worth your time." Another pause. Then, "He definitely is." After she left, I called in sick to work and drove to the office of Patricia Hendricks, Bryce's ex-wife. Will had done some digging and discovered that Patricia had gotten royally screwed in their divorce 5 years ago. She'd been the one with the money and connections when they started their first development company, but somehow, Bryce had ended up with all the assets when they split. Patricia agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. She was a sharp-looking woman in her early 40s, with the kind of confidence that comes from surviving a messy divorce and coming out stronger. "So you're Adrienne Turner's husband," she said, settling into the booth across from me. "I've heard about you. Nothing good, I'm sure. Actually, she talks about you quite a bit. Always complaining about how boring and predictable you are, how you lack ambition." Patricia stirred her latte thoughtfully. "Funny thing is, she describes you exactly the way I used to describe myself when I was married to Bryce." "What do you mean?" "He has this way of making you feel small, like you're not exciting enough, not successful enough, not enough period. He convinced me that I was holding him back, that I was too conservative and risk-averse. So I started taking bigger risks, making bolder moves, trying to prove I could keep up with him." "How did that work out?" Patricia laughed bitterly. "I lost everything. My business, my house, most of my friends. Turns out all those bold moves were actually just stupid moves, but I was so desperate to prove myself that I couldn't see it." "And now he's doing the same thing to Adrienne." "Oh, absolutely. Classic Bryce playbook. Find a successful woman who's feeling restless, convince her she's settling for less than she deserves, then slowly isolate her from her support system while positioning himself as the solution to all her problems." Patricia pulled out her phone and showed me a series of photos. "These are from Adrienne's Instagram over the past 6 months. Notice anything?" I scrolled through the images. Adrienne at expensive restaurants, Adrienne at exclusive events, Adrienne wearing designer clothes I knew we couldn't afford. And in the background of several shots, barely visible but definitely there, was Bryce. "He's been grooming her," Patricia continued, "getting her used to a lifestyle that's just slightly beyond what you two can afford together. Making her feel like she deserves more luxury, more excitement. Then he swoops in as the guy who can provide all of that." "But can he actually provide it?" Patricia's smile was sharp. "That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" "Bryce is very good at looking successful. He drives the right car, wears the right clothes, belongs to the right clubs. But his actual financial situation is complicated." She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Copies of everything I could legally obtain about his business dealings, Court records, bankruptcy filings, partnership agreements. It's all public information, just buried under layers of legal paperwork and shell companies. I opened the folder and felt my pulse quicken. This was better than I'd hoped. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. "Because I know what it's like to have Bryce Maddox destroy your life, and because your wife has no idea what she's getting herself into." Patricia leaned forward, her expression serious. "Don't get me wrong, I'm not doing this out of the goodness of my heart. I want to see that bastard get what's coming to him. But I also don't want to see another woman make the same mistakes I did." "What mistakes?" "Believing that excitement and stability can't coexist. Thinking that boring equals bad. Your wife is about to throw away 15 years of marriage for a man who will discard her the moment she stops being useful to him." I spent the rest of the afternoon studying Patricia's files and planning my next move. The key was going to be timing. Adrienne and Bryce thought they were being clever, but they were actually being predictable. All I had to do was stay one step ahead of them. That evening, Adrienne came home later than usual, her hair slightly mussed and her lipstick completely gone. She claimed the client meeting had run long and they'd gone to dinner to close the deal. "Must have been some dinner," I observed. "You've got a stain on your blouse." She looked down quickly, then back up at me with a forced smile. "Red wine. You know how clumsy I get when I'm excited about a big sale." "Right. Red wine." The stain was actually from chocolate mousse, according to the Instagram post Bryce had made from the restaurant 2 hours earlier. He'd tagged the location and everything, the arrogant idiot. Over the next few days, I watched their routine with growing amusement. They thought they were being so careful, so clever, but they were leaving a trail of evidence that a blind person could follow. Social media posts, credit card receipts, even security camera footage from the various hotels and restaurants they frequented. The breaking point came on Thursday night. I was pretending to sleep when Adrienne got up at midnight to use the burner phone. This time, I was recording everything with a tiny camera Will had helped me install in our bedroom. "I can't wait much longer," she whispered into the phone. "He's starting to ask questions and Emma is getting suspicious too." Pause while Bryce responded. "No, I don't think he knows anything for sure. He's too trusting, too stupid." Her voice was cold, clinical. "But we need to move faster on the financial stuff. I want to make sure everything is transferred before he has a chance to react." Another pause. "The lawyer said we need documentation of emotional abuse or neglect. Can you help me create some evidence? Text messages, maybe some photos of bruises?" She was planning to frame me for domestic abuse. I know it seems extreme, but it's the only way to guarantee I get full custody and the house. Nick's too much of a Boy Scout to fight dirty, so he'll never see it coming. I lay there in the dark, listening to my wife plan to destroy my life, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The last remnant of guilt I'd been carrying about my revenge plans evaporated completely. She wanted to play dirty? Game on. The next morning, I called Will and told him about the conversation. His response was immediate and decisive. "We're moving to phase 2, he said. "It's time to go public." "Are you sure we have enough?" "Nick, we have her on tape planning to frame you for domestic abuse. We have financial records showing Bryce's history of fraud. We have months of documented infidelity. We don't just have enough. We have more than we need. What do you want me to do?" "There's a big real estate industry event this Saturday night, some kind of awards dinner at the Marriott. Adrienne's company is sponsoring it, and Bryce will be there as a featured speaker." "How do you know all this?" "Because my firm handles legal work for half the real estate companies in the city. I know exactly who will be there, what the setup looks like, and how to get access to their audiovisual equipment." I could hear the grin in his voice. "Will, what are you planning?" "Justice, my friend. Sweet, public, humiliating justice. Saturday couldn't come fast enough." The Real Estate Industry Awards dinner was exactly the kind of event Adrienne lived for. 500 of the city's most influential property professionals gathered in one ballroom, all trying to out-network each other while pretending to care about. excellence in residential sales. She'd spent 3 hours getting ready, choosing a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "You should come," she'd said while applying her makeup, though her tone suggested she hoped I'd decline. "It might be good for you to meet some new people." "Thanks, but I think I'll stay home with Emma." "You have fun." "I will." She'd smiled at herself in the mirror, and for just a moment I saw a flash of the woman I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. It almost made me reconsider what I was about to do. I waited until she left, then kissed Emma goodnight and told her I had to run an errand. "Will's helping me with something for work," I explained. "I'll be back before midnight." "Is this about Mom?" Emma asked, looking up from her homework. "Maybe." "Good. She's been really mean to you lately. I don't like it. Smart kid. Too smart." Will was waiting in the Marriott parking lot with a laptop bag and a confident smile. "You ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "Remember, once we start this, there's no going back." "Are you absolutely sure?" I thought about Adrienne's plan to frame me for abuse, about months of lies and manipulation, about the casual way she'd dismissed our marriage as settling for mediocre. "I'm sure." The hotel was buzzing with activity. Will had somehow gotten us service staff uniforms and temporary ID badges that would get us into the ballroom during the dinner. The plan was simple: wait for Bryce's keynote speech, then hijack the presentation system to show everyone exactly what kind of man they were applauding. We slipped in through the service entrance and made our way to the audiovisual booth. Will had called in a favor with the AV company. Apparently their IT manager owed him from a messy divorce case, and we had 15 minutes to set everything up. "There," Will said, connecting his laptop to the main presentation system. "We're live. Now we just wait for the right moment." I peered through the booth window at the crowd below. The ballroom was elegant, all white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers. Adrienne was sitting at a table near the front, laughing at something Bryce was saying. She looked radiant, happier than I'd seen her in months. That was about to change. The dinner portion of the evening dragged on forever. Speech after speech, award after award, all building up to Bryce's keynote address about innovation in urban development. I watched him work the room during cocktail hour, shaking hands and slapping backs like he owned the place. Finally, the master of ceremonies took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Bryce Maddox." The applause was enthusiastic. Bryce walked to the podium with the confidence of a man who'd never faced real consequences for his actions. He was wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo and his trademark smug smile. "Thank you all for that warm welcome," he began. "Tonight, I want to talk to you about taking risks, about refusing to settle for mediocre, about having the courage to reach for something better." The irony was perfect. Bryce clicked to his first slide, and for a moment, everything proceeded normally. He talked about his latest development project, showed architectural renderings, discussed market projections. The audience was engaged, nodding along with his vision of luxury living spaces. Then, Will pressed a key on his laptop. The slide changed, but instead of Bryce's next talking point, the screen filled with a text message conversation. Adrienne's burner phone messages, blown up to 20 feet wide for everyone to see. "Can't wait to feel you inside me again," read the first message, time-stamped from 3 days earlier. The audience stirred. A few people pointed at the screen. Bryce turned around to see what they were looking at, and his face went white. "That hotel room was perfect," read the next message. "I told Nick I was showing properties all afternoon. He's so pathetically trusting." Now the murmur in the crowd was getting louder. People were pulling out their phones, taking pictures of the screen. At her table, Adrienne had gone completely pale. Bryce frantically clicked his presentation remote, but Will had locked him out of the system. The messages kept coming, each one more explicit and damaging than the last. "I can't wait to be free of this boring marriage," appeared on screen. "Nick is such a loser. No ambition, no passion, no idea how to satisfy a real woman. That one stung, even though I'd been expecting it. The crowd was no longer murmuring. They were talking openly, pointing, laughing. Adrienne had covered her face with her hands. Piper and Gina were staring at her in shock, while Tasha was openly grinning and taking photos. But the best was yet to come. Will clicked to the next file, and suddenly the screen filled with financial documents. Bank records, court filings, bankruptcy papers, all of Bryce's dirty laundry laid out for everyone to see. Bryce Maddox, fraud, bankruptcy, and misconduct, read the title slide Will had created. The audience was in chaos now. People were standing up, talking loudly, some heading for the exits. The master of ceremonies was frantically trying to get the AV team's attention, but we'd locked the booth from the inside. Bryce had abandoned the podium and was pushing through the crowd toward Adrienne's table. But she was already gone, fleeing toward the exit with her purse clutched to her chest. The final slide was my personal favorite, a photo of Bryce's keyed BMW with home wrecker scratched into the paint, next to a screenshot of him bragging about the car on social media just hours before. "Karma is a beautiful thing," read the caption. Will and I slipped out the service exit while security was still trying to figure out what had happened. By the time we reached the parking lot, my phone was buzzing with texts and calls from numbers I didn't recognize. The story was already spreading on social media. #BryceExposed was trending on Twitter. Someone had live-streamed the whole thing on Instagram, and it was being shared faster than we could track. I drove home in a daze, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. Emma was asleep, and the house was quiet. I poured myself a bourbon and sat in my office, watching the social media storm unfold. Adrienne didn't come home that night, or the next night. According to the GPS tracker, her car was parked outside a cheap motel on the other side of town. Apparently, Bryce's penthouse wasn't available anymore. The fallout was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, Bryce's development company had lost 3 major investors. 2 more women had come forward with misconduct allegations. The city had announced an investigation into his building permits and zoning approvals. Adrienne's real estate firm put her on administrative leave while they dealt with the publicity nightmare. Piper and Gina were posting cryptic messages about fake friends and people showing their true colors. Even Tasha, who lived for drama, seemed shocked by how far things had gone. But I wasn't done yet, not even close. The real war was just beginning. 3 weeks after the awards dinner disaster, Adrienne finally came home. She looked like hell, dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. The expensive lifestyle Bryce had been funding was apparently over. "We need to talk," she said, standing in the doorway of my office like she was afraid to come any closer. "I'm listening. I know it was you. The presentation, the financial documents, all of it." Her voice was hoarse, defeated. "I don't know how you found out about Bryce and me, but—" "You left your burner phone on the nightstand," I interrupted. "For someone planning to frame their husband for domestic abuse, you're remarkably careless with evidence." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "You recorded our conversations?" "Every single one. Including the part where you discussed creating fake bruises to use against me in court." Adrienne sank into the chair across from my desk, all the fight gone out of her. "Nick, I never meant for things to go this far. Bryce, he convinced me that you were holding me back, that I deserved better. I got caught up in the excitement of it all." "So this is his fault?" "No, it's mine. I made the choices. I said those things about you, about our marriage. I planned to hurt you." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "But I never stopped loving you." Funny way of showing it. "I know you hate me right now, and I don't blame you, but we have a daughter to think about. Can we try to work something out? For Emma's sake?" I studied her face, looking for any sign of the woman I'd married. She was still beautiful, even worn down by 3 weeks of public humiliation and financial stress. Part of me, a small, stupid part, wanted to forgive her, to try to rebuild what we'd lost. Then I remembered her voice on that recording. He's so pathetically trusting. "Where's Bryce?" I asked. "Gone. He left town 2 days ago. Something about business opportunities in Phoenix." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out he's not so interested in raising the bar when it means dealing with consequences." "And you believed he'd take you with him?" "For a while. Right up until his lawyer called to tell me I was on my own." Adrienne wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I've been such an idiot." Before I could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway. She'd been staying with my parents since the awards dinner, but I'd brought her home that afternoon because she'd insisted on being here for this conversation. "Hi, Mom," Emma said coolly. "Emma, sweetheart, I've missed you so much." Adrienne started to stand, but Emma held up a hand. "Don't. I heard what you said about Dad. I heard what you were planning to do to him." My 13-year-old daughter's voice was steady, mature beyond her years. "I know you're my mom, and I'm supposed to love you no matter what, but right now I don't even like you." Adrienne's face crumpled. "Emma, please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. You cheated on Dad, you lied to both of us, and you were going to send him to jail for something he didn't do." Emma crossed her arms, looking so much like her mother in that moment that it was almost funny. "Dad never said a single bad thing about you, even after he found out. He protected you from me asking questions. He's been nothing but decent through all of this." "Your father has been planning this revenge for weeks," Adrienne said desperately. "He humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. He destroyed my career, my reputation." "Good," Emma said simply. "You deserved it." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Adrienne turned back to me. "What happens now?" "Now you pack your things and leave. Will has already filed the divorce papers. You'll get whatever the law says you're entitled to, but given the circumstances, that won't be much." "What about Emma? What about her?" "She's made her choice pretty clear." Adrienne looked at our daughter one more time, hope and desperation warring in her expression. But Emma just stared back, unmoved. "I'll need a few days to find a place," Adrienne said finally. "You have until Sunday." She nodded and headed upstairs to start packing. Emma and I sat in my office, listening to the sounds of drawers opening and closing, hangers scraping in the closet. "Are you okay?" I asked her. "Are you getting there?" "Good, because I have something to tell you." Emma grinned, and suddenly she looked like a normal 13-year-old again instead of a tiny adult. "I may have accidentally sent some of Mom's old Instagram posts to a few people at school. The ones where she was bragging about her exciting new lifestyle and talking about how some people are brave enough to go after what they want." "Emma." "What?" "She posted them publicly. It's not my fault if people screenshot things." Her grin widened. "Besides, Mrs. Patterson said it was a good lesson in digital citizenship. Actions have consequences, even online. Will's wife was Emma's 8th grade English teacher. I made a mental note to send her a very nice thank you gift." "You know this means she's going to have trouble finding work in this city," I said. "I know. Maybe she'll have to move somewhere else and start over. Build some character for once in her life." Jesus, my kid was ruthless. That weekend, Adrienne packed her things in silence while Emma and I worked on a new deck railing. She'd found a furnished apartment across town, close to where Bryce's penthouse had been, before his investors foreclosed on it. "I'm going to try to get my real estate license in another state," she told me on Sunday morning, as she loaded the last box into her car. "Start fresh somewhere. Good luck with that. Nick, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know that I really did love you. I still do. I just lost sight of what was important." "No, you didn't lose sight of anything. You made a choice. You chose excitement over stability, passion over partnership, selfishness over family. Own that. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Will you tell Emma I love her? You can tell her yourself. She's right there. I pointed to the front window, where Emma was watching from behind the curtain. Adrienne walked to the window and pressed her hand against the glass. Emma looked at her for a long moment, then slowly raised her own hand to match her mother's palm. It lasted maybe 5 seconds before Emma turned away. It was more forgiveness than Adrienne deserved, but it was something. After she left, Emma and I ordered pizza and watched terrible movies until late into the night. We didn't talk about Adrienne or Bryce or any of it. We just sat together on the couch, eating too much junk food and laughing at stupid jokes. It felt like the beginning of something new. 6 months later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Adrienne in what looked like a small-town real estate office, wearing a cheap suit and a forced smile. The message read, "Selling double wides in Tucson. Guess I finally found my level." I showed it to Emma, who was doing homework at the kitchen table. "Should I feel bad for her?" she asked. "Do you?" "Not really." She made her choices. "Then don't feel bad." I deleted the message and went back to helping Emma with her algebra. Outside, the sun was setting over our neighborhood, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful and peaceful, and exactly as exciting as I needed it to be. Adrienne had been right about one thing. I was predictable, stable, maybe even boring. But I was also loyal and honest and present for the people I loved. Those weren't character flaws. They were strengths. It had taken me 40 years to learn that lesson, but it was worth the wait. As for Bryce, the last I heard he was facing federal fraud charges in Phoenix. Turns out his business opportunities were just more elaborate schemes to bilk investors. The FBI had been building a case against him for months, and my little presentation had provided them with some very useful evidence. Karma really was a beautiful thing. That night, after Emma went to bed, I sat on my deck with a bourbon and looked up at the stars. The deck railing we'd built together was solid and straight, built to last. Just like the life we were building together, one day at a time. I raised my glass to the sky and smiled. "Here's to high bars and realistic expectations," I said to no one in particular. Then I finished my drink and went inside to my perfectly predictable, wonderfully stable life.